Good day and welcome back, loved ones, to Maker's Bar, where we're creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. It's your guy, Seth Guru Baxter, with a special guest today and as a part of the series in Redefining Black Excellence. I'm humbled and honored to have with us one of the key persons in this particular series and founder and owner of SpeakerHUB. His name is Ron Story Jr. And today we're in for a special treat when we're discussing defining Black excellence. He's a prime example. What I'd like to do is introduce Ron Story, and we're going to get started here. Ron, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Seth. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's absolutely a pleasure. Coming from Angela as a reference, I just couldn't wait and with excitement to be able to speak with you. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem.
So Ron, you are the founder of SpeakerHUB. SpeakerHUB, would you please describe to us what the organization is, please?
So actually, I'm not the founder of SpeakerHUB. I'm the owner of SpeakerHUB, but I didn't start it. So SpeakerHUB is a recent acquisition that my company made. We buy small software companies. So if you were to think of Robert Smith, who runs Vista Equity Partners, who purchases software companies, he's kind of the poster child for Black billionaires. I don't have $100 billion, but I didn't think I needed $100 billion in order to go out and to pursue a similar agenda. So where Robert will buy these large $100, $200 million companies, I go out and I buy smaller ones that help me to push my agenda of changing the narrative in Black America and just positive messages around the world. I think we hear a lot of negative music, a lot of negative movies, things of that sort. And that's because the machine behind them are constantly promoting those artists, those producers, things of that sort. But nobody's promoting the person who had enough resilience to survive a tragic incident or a traumatic opportunity, or they may be highly educated but not a good marketer. So SpeakerHUB serves as the amplifier for the voices of speakers. So if we were to think of the old component systems when we were growing up, you had the tape deck and the carousel CDs, then you had the amplifier and the speakers connected to the amplifier. The speakers didn't connect to the tape deck or the CD player. They all had to connect to the amplifier. And SpeakerHUB is that amplifier to the voices of speakers around the world.
And so SpeakerHUB facilitates the engagement.
Exactly. So if you think of LinkedIn, SpeakerHUB is just like LinkedIn. You can create a profile to advertise for a job. On LinkedIn, you're advertising for a job. In SpeakerHUB, you're advertising for a speaking gig, right? And you can pay for a higher version of LinkedIn, just like you can pay for a higher version of SpeakerHUB. So we have a free version, but we have a version where you can do outreach. And instead of waiting on someone to hire you or review your resume, you can reach out and send your resume to people, just like on LinkedIn, where you can buy a sales navigator and reach out to the person you're trying to sell your services to, instead of waiting on them to discover you. So that's what we do. We're the largest directory of speakers in the world and the largest directory of speaking opportunities. So we have about 64,000 speakers that have profiles as of January 2025. But we have about 4 million speaking opportunities that cover podcasts, large and small stages, and press coverage. So it covers the entire, what we call the speaker flywheel or thought leader flywheel, that allows someone to share their message in whatever modality that works.
How did you come into contact with SpeakerHUB?
So I actually started a competitor to SpeakerHUB back in 2018. We bought a data company out of Austin, Texas. And I didn't want to get into just selling email addresses and things of that sort, like unlimited for $99. A lot of the people in that space were just selling data. And I was like, dude, like, what's a better way to do this? And ironically, Angela asked, hey, you think you could do this cold outreach thing that you're doing for these other companies? Can you do that to help me to get speaking gigs? I was like, I can get you the meeting. I probably can't. I'm not going to negotiate it or help you to do any of that, because she was doing John Maxwell at the time. I'm like, I'll do some outreach. And in a week, we had got her a bunch of meetings with meeting planners. And she was like, you need to meet Chris Robinson. He's like the best John Maxwell guy in the world. You need to talk with him. And he was out of St. Louis, and he gave me a bunch of insight on how we could better serve speakers and consultants like the Maxwell Consultants. And at the time, the company, we named it Pitch DB for Pitch Database. And we launched that company on November the 11th of 2019. And in January of 2020, I started a conversation with Andras, the former owner of SpeakerHUB. And we kept that relationship going. And I reached back out to him in February of last year, said, hey, man, we haven't talked in a while. And he said, dude, you still want to buy this thing? And I was like, yeah. So we had only been open for maybe 2 months before I made an offer to buy SpeakerHUB, which was the largest speaking directory at the time. We were only 3 months old. And I was like, dude, if I'm going to go big, I should just go get the big one. And we did.
So what put you on this journey? Tell us your origin. So where were you born and raised? And give us a little bit of insight into that story, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I'm a kid from East St. Louis who grew up. Both of my parents were school teachers and educators. I was the little kid out of all of my friends. I was the little guy. Everybody else was bigger than me and taller than me, but everybody was always at my house because I had the sports equipment, right? So I had the baseballs, the basketballs, I had the basketball hoop, the football. So my mom had a pretty interesting strategy of, I can keep him at home if I make it where everybody wants to be over here, instead of him being out in the streets and other places. So I always had all the cool stuff. I had all the video games, the basketball. So all the kids in the neighborhood were at my house every day, right? So I didn't, I would ride my bike around, but at the end of the day, we all knew they were going to end up. The first social network in East St. Louis was my front yard. Right? so that's what I grew up. I grew up, down the street from Jackie Joyner Kersey, a couple miles away from where Miles Davis, these are,
you're talking my language.
That's where we're from. So, that's my origin story. That's why I grew up, was coached by some of the best basketball and wrestling and baseball coaches in Illinois history. And they were friends of our family and great leaders to me. So I had great examples of discipline and things like that coming from those men that were in my life. So, so I went on, ended up going to college, became a financial advisor, worked with some of the big financial advisory firms. And once I kind of reached my maximum there, I realized that if I were going to be, in order to make millions of dollars, you had to be like the top 0.1% of financial advisors. But to make millions of dollars as a software company, you could be the bottom 50%. So I'm like, well, my chances of making a lot of money is in buying software companies, because there's not a lot of licensing and regulation. Software is software. You can just own it. But with financial advisory, you had to have all these licenses, and you could only pass it to your family if they had the same license. Like, dude, I'm taking all the risk. Why have they got all these rules? Let me go into an industry where my skills are superior to theirs. And most financial advisors, since we sell ideas, like you can't touch an insurance policy. You can't touch your Apple stock. You're selling an idea to a person. Imagine if I could sell an idea that I could demonstrate like software, because most coders, they're kind of to themselves. They're not really outgoing people. They're more introverted. So I always had this saying that I can't code, but you can't sell. So let's figure out a way that we can work together. So I left the insurance and the financial advisory business in 2012 to start doing sales consulting for software companies in St. Louis.
So were you always entrepreneurial as long as you can remember?
Yeah. I still remember collecting cans and bagging cans and stomping cans and putting them in the trunk of my mom's car We had to wash them all out so their car didn't smell like beer and old Pepsi. And taking them and recycling cans, man. That's how I made money as a kid. That's how I bought Nintendo games. That's how I bought things that my mom didn't want to buy for me. I recycled cans, and I would go around asking, "Hey, can I have your cans? Or can I put a bag right here where y'all put y'all cans in the bag, so I can come by and get them?" And I saved cans and recycled cans. So that was the first kind of entrepreneurial thing. There were no paper routes in East St. Louis, right? Nobody was, we weren't doing it. Right? People weren't slinging papers. They were slinging other things, but they weren't slinging papers. And, but I guess, yeah, because I'll tell you something funny. There's a program called Inroads out of St. Louis. It may be in other states too, but Inroads was an internship program that was in like the inner city schools that gave you jobs at like Boeing and the local bank and the Federal Reserve. And they had all these relationships that would give kids from East St. Louis like internships in the summer. And one of my childhood friends still works at Boeing from that Inroads internship 30 years ago that he did in the 10th grade. And I'm like, dude, like, you talk about consistency. He's been there for 30 years. Since he was 15, right? And now we're 45, 46. Well, when he had the chance to go to Inroads, I had to make a decision. There was another thing started by a lady named Sandra Marks out of St. Louis called the Minority Youth Entrepreneurship Program. And that was my choice. I could go get the job, the Inroads thing, or I could learn how to start a business. And I chose the course that was at Washington University, at the Minority Youth Entrepreneurship Program, where they taught us how to start a business. So, that's what I did while I was in high school. I tried to start little businesses, didn't make a lot of money, but I was learning skills. And when I went to college for engineering, I failed out my first year at the University of Illinois. And I fell back on what I knew, which was entrepreneurship. So I went on to try to start several businesses and had ideas stolen from me by pretty reputable people, which some people would look at that as a negative, but I looked at it as a vote of confidence. Like, dude, if he's willing to steal that idea and make it happen, only thing I was missing was the money, right? So there's a prominent miniature golf place, the only miniature golf place in Champaign, Illinois. The person who built that took my business plan and built it.
Oh, wow.
And, but at the time I cried like a baby because I didn't really know what to do. It's 1998. I'm like, dude, where's my business plan? He's like, oh, come get it tomorrow. And I remember getting a phone call from this guy, and he says, Ryan, man, I see you did it. I went to your place. It is amazing. I'm like, you went where? He was like, the miniature golf place. It's just like the thing you had drawn up. It's everything. I see you changed the name. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I drove an hour over to Champaign. It was on the exact lot. And he had built the exact layout that was in my business plan. Wow. And man, I cried like a baby. But it was a huge lesson that, I could have quit at that point, but it was just an affirmative to me that the bankers were right, because I went to every bank outside of Chicago, Peoria, Springfield. I presented all of them my business plan, and they all said, hey, how much money you going to put up? I'm like, dude, I'm 20. I don't have any money. I'm like broke. Like, I'm a broke college kid. And they were like, well, we can't lend you money if you don't have any skin in the game. And I didn't know how to raise money. I didn't know anything about that. But the guy who I showed the business plan to, he knew about that. And he had the money to do it himself. He didn't need to go to a bank. I won't say his name, but he got a tennis center at the University of Illinois named after him. So if you go look at that tennis center, it's him. That's the dude that stole my plan, and his son-in-law built it. So just go see who the tennis center is named after. It might be the person I'm talking about.
I was just thinking.
So if you can have so you can see the difference in capital, right? So I learned a huge lesson that those who have money usually don't have the time, but those who have the time usually don't have the money.
Mm.
And you're always kind of making that exchange in life, trying to use your time as much as you can to make more money. But once you are at the age where you've made some money, you're like, well, now I got to start buying people's time through employees and investing and things of that sort. And in his case, he just took my idea, but no hard feelings. He taught me a lot. And, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that. That lesson gave me the confidence I needed to know that I didn't have bad ideas. I just had a lack of capital. So I don't have that problem no more. I got capital now. I don't have that problem, man. We're good on this.
Now you bring up a very interesting point. One of the recurring themes I've been hearing is that it's through failure the success comes in the entrepreneurs. And I hear that. And I think so many people, I know for myself as well, failure is a thing that we fear. And so sometimes it prevents us from making those leap forward. And is that what I'm understanding? It was and I don't know, maybe failure is the wrong word, but I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't think you fail. Like, you only fail when you quit. Up until then, you're just learning, right? So that wasn't a failure. It was a lesson, right? So some people look at it as a loss, but I look at it as a lesson, right? And I always tell my team, there's a lot of L's before the M's, right? And meaning you got to there's a lot of lessons you're going to learn before you get to that M, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, L, M. The L's come before the M's.
Oh, so dig it.
You better get them L's, get the lessons, and they may come in the form of temporary losses, right? But that's what it takes to get to the M in the form of mil, which is 1,000, or in English, millions, which is millions, right? So, but you got to go through that process. So you take a bunch of L's, and then you learn the metric M, which is 1,000. You learn to make $1,000. You become a thousandaire, and then eventually you keep compounding that, and then it leads to $1 million opportunities. But you can't skip. There's no way to skip it. Everybody who appears to be further ahead of you just learned the lessons faster than you, right? So when I was in the financial advisory business, a guy named Phil Sarnecki, and he used to always talk about eating the poop sandwich, right? And he's like, you got to eat it. Like, you can nibble it, or you can just stick it in your mouth, but you got to eat the poop sandwich. Right?
Oh boy.
Yeah. So he's like, you can sit there and nibble on it, but you're just going to be here while everybody else has just swallowed it and moved on, while you're still nipping at it. But everything you want is on the other side of that poop sandwich. And I think a lot of people, they delay the poop sandwich because of what they imagine it tasting like, right? Instead of what it really is. Like, most of it is just fear of the unknown. But that's kind of how I look at it, man.
I appreciate that, and that is a different way to look at it, and I do appreciate that. Now, in talking about that, also, I think that's one of the things in talking about Black excellence. Sometimes the vision or the image of Black excellence is these multimillionaire 1%ers and so forth. But what you just explained as a part, to me, is Black excellence in that way. How would you define that? Black excellence. Well, what is that?
Yeah. So I'll tell you something. My mom was excellent, right? And she never made a bunch of money, right? I mean, but she was excellent at what she did. Like, the number of kids that lived with us growing up who were maybe put out of the house by their parents or were in a bad situation with their families. My mom, they came and lived with me, right? They came and lived with me and my two sisters in our little 3-bedroom, I call it a 2.5-bedroom house, right? There was always somebody there with me and my sisters who weren't in as fortunate of a home family setting. So, that's excellent to me. I think excellence comes down to integrity. I don't think anybody's perfect. I think nowadays, in most people's minds, excellence means perfect, but it's the scars that tell the stories, right? So you look for those scars in people. I want to learn from people that have the scars, right? Because that means that they learned something and they fell in a pothole that they can warn me about, right? The person who didn't fall in a pothole, they don't know what to look out for, or they may not have been down the same road that I'm on. But I need to know what to look out for when I'm on this journey. So I'm always looking for the scars and the imperfections. It's kind of cliche, but most people don't know what the difference is between a cubic zirconia and a diamond. On the outside, they look exactly the same. But when you use the spectacle to examine them, the way that you can tell the cubic zirconia from a diamond is the diamond has flaws. The cubic zirconia is perfect, right? So that's the difference. So if you put a 100 gems on a piece of velvet, and you told me to find the diamond, and you gave me one of the little spectacles to do it, I could do it pretty quickly because I know what I'm looking for. But the untrained eye isn't looking for the flaw. They're looking for, well, I don't know, all these look exactly the same. Well, no, all of them look exactly the same because they are the wrong ones, right? So, but knowing to look for flaws, I think that's what makes the diamonds. And everyone I've ever looked up to was perfectly imperfect. And that's why I respected them, because I knew that there was something that gave them the lesson. So to bring it all back together, excellence isn't perfection. Excellence is integrity. It's all of the things that gain respect. And it's hard to respect someone without integrity. It's hard to respect someone who is a cheater, a liar, a scumbag, currently. If they were that in the past and they changed, I can respect that. Right. But if they're still that, I can't respect that at that point in time. So I respect the growth. That's excellence to me. It's getting better. But it ain't perfection.
I really like that. And then you mentioned most of the people that you looked up to. Are there some people that you looked up to that we might be familiar with, that you saw this is a good example on excellence? Or there's some people that you thought about when you were coming up?
Yeah, well, I mean, I try to find people who look like me that was doing what I wanted to do, right? So when I was a financial advisor, I looked up to the guy who the Pursuit of Happiness book was about. Right?
Oh, yes.
And then there was another guy named Michael Chin, who was a Jamaican investment guy out of Canada. Even though he was Jamaican, he was based out of Canada, and he was, an investment guy at the time. And then I started to learn about Michael Victor Roberts and his brother Stephen Roberts, and what they were doing with real estate and things like that in St. Louis. And now their kids are some of my best friends, right? But those were the people I was looking up to when I was in that, when I was in financial advisory and trying to make the transition. And then I started to learn about people like, Robert Smith. And then I was like, dude, I'll never meet Robert Smith. Are there any Black venture capital funds in St. Louis? And I did a Google search and I found a guy by the name of David Price. And David Price is a Harvard MBA alum from St. Louis, who was the CEO of BF Goodrich Performance Materials, the tire company.
Oh, yeah.
But he's based out of St. Louis. I emailed him for 2 years. For 2 years, I emailed him asking for a meeting. He was running a venture capital firm, a private equity firm out of St. Louis called Burdett Price. And I found it, and I was like, dude, I saw his photo, and I'm like, dude, we're in the same fraternity. I know he's going to meet with me. Yeah, right. 2 years later, he met with me, right? And he sent me an email, and he said, hey, look, 4 people have reached out to me mentioning that you wanted to have lunch, and I've been getting your emails. Stop emailing me and let's go to breakfast tomorrow. Meet me at 6 a.m. at the St. Louis Country Club. And I'm like, dude, it's 8 p.m. I got meetings tomorrow, but I ain't missing this one. So at 6 a.m., I got up and I went to breakfast, and he was the most prepared person I ever met with. I mean, the most prepared. Anything that had ever been written about me on the internet, he had it printed out in a folder.
Wow.
Every article, every page, every YouTube video, everything from Facebook, he had everything about me in a folder that was about this thick. And I said, wait a minute. He didn't just decide on this meeting last night when he emailed me. He'd been prepared for this way ahead of time.
Wow.
Right? To decide if I was even worthy of being met with. At least that's the way it appeared. Because there's no way he had this stack of papers he printed out that night. Right? And they weren't fresh. They were tattered where he had gone through them. And I'm like, holy crap. So I get there. He sits this folder down and he opens it up. And he's like, so tell me about this. And I'm like, dude, where you get this from? Right? And it was a huge lesson for me to be able to meet Mr. Price. And it was a huge lesson in Black excellence, that excellence is prepared, right? Like he was prepared for the meeting. He wasn't just winging it, right? He made a cognitive decision and a quantitative decision of whether or not I was even worthy of that meeting, right? So, you know, David Price was great. And then he introduced me to someone that I think was incredible, but he was just not as well known. But if you ask the people who he helped, they all know him. So that was a guy named Bob Coleman. And Bob Coleman at one point bought the 7-Up bottling company out of St. Louis. He bailed out Wittenauer watches years ago. He helped Dave Stewart with some of the financing of Worldwide Technologies when they first got started. He actually worked with Reginald Lewis. He was an employee of Reginald Lewis who wrote the book, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun, right? Which was the first book I read on leverage buyouts, right? But Bob Coleman worked with Reg Lewis in his firm, in Beatrice Foods and all of that stuff back in the day. So when I met David, I'm like, Dave, this is what I'm trying to do. And he was like, I know I have the Burdett Price thing, but you need to meet Bob. I'm going to put you in touch with Bob because you and Bob are just alike. And Bob has done what you're trying to do. And Bob Coleman was a monster. I'm talking about like he was incredible at like the strategies of how to buy companies, how to finance them, how to structure them. And I would just go and listen to him for 3 hours. Like he couldn't drive at the time because he had some medical issues, but his son would sit with us at Starbucks playing games on his phone while me and his dad I'm just listening to his dad tell me all these legendary stories about how we should do different things. And he was like, Ron, I got a deal on the table. I want you to help me with it. And we ended up working on a deal together, me, him, and David at one point, and working on several deals. But those are the guys that I look up to. Like they had the skills, they had the goods where they could show their work. And both of them were Harvard MBA guys. You know, that's Black excellence in itself. You know, not too many Black folks go to Harvard, not to mention Black folks that was going to Harvard in the 60s. You know, like, right? I mean, they were going to Harvard in the 60s and 70s. So it's like, that's real Black excellence to be able to make it to that level during those tough civil rights times.
Absolutely.
Right? But those are the guys that I look up to and that I respected, and they gave me the little bit of game that I was able to take in. I wish I'd have met them 20 years earlier, but when they were really kicking. But you know, I met them while they were retired, but man, never doubt the mental fortitude of someone that's retired. They may not be able to do it physically and fly around and do all of that, but I used to tell Dave and Mr. Price and Mr. Coleman, I would say, look, I got the legs. I don't have the experience. Like, tell me where to go. You ain't got to ever pay for nothing. I will be there. Like, you tell me where to fly, I will figure it out. I will go. you need me to do any research, anything, point me in the direction, because I can't buy what you have, right? And you're going to forget more. You've already forgotten more than what I've ever learned about this industry. So, yeah, I mean, I give those guys the utmost respect. And even to this day, Bob, David and I, Mr. Price, we will probably meet whenever I'm back in St. Louis for breakfast. And the meeting goes like this. It's really simple. And he'll laugh when we talk about this. Usually I send him a couple questions about things that I'm working on, and we'll meet at first watch, right? And it's usually like 6 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And there's never been a time where I've beat him there. I think I would have to get there at like 4 to beat him there, but he's always there before me. No matter how early I try to get there, he's always already there. And I'm like, how? But he's there before me. I usually sit down and he says, here's what I have to say. And I don't say nothing. We catch up with the family for about 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And I just listen to him for 30 minutes, give me instructions on how I should go about things. And I say, hey, thank you. I appreciate it. And I go pay the tab. I don't even know what he's ordered. I just ask what's the tab for the bill. I don't even eat. I don't eat the breakfast.
You're just listening.
I'm out of respect. I want to respect his time. He's going to give me 30 minutes. I'm showing up. I'm going to respect him 30 minutes. I'm going to get the game because I know he's already prepared because I already sifted my questions ahead of time on what I was trying to do. I'm in and out. Like, hey, I respect you. I don't want to be a burden on you. You're doing me a favor. If I had to pay for this consulting time, it would be ridiculously expensive. Let's just do this, right? But that's pretty much our in-person interactions. But we talk more candidly over the phone. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to respect their time and their expertise. And he don't need my advice, so I don't have no rebuttals. I ain't challenging nothing he's saying. I'll go back and challenge it when I'm back at home and run it through my own filters. But in front of him, nope. You don't run a multi-$100 billion company and take advice from someone who's half your age. You give them the game and you pray that they accept it. And hopefully I've answered all of his prayers that I accept the game that he's got.
Now I'm curious, what was the best piece of advice that he gave you that you could share with us?
That you're good enough. Mm-hmm. See, the great thing about Mr. Price,
that was a quick hit, and that was as simple as it was. That was very poignant. That you're good enough. I don't think.
Yeah. Like hear that. The great thing about like older people that have done it, they've already been in the room with other folks who got all this prestige, and they're one of those people with the prestige, and they realize, no, this person just kept going. They just believed more than this other person, right? And think bigger, like. Think way bigger than whatever you're thinking. Like if you're thinking this big, just multiply by 100, right? Because you're good enough to do it. You just don't know how, but you don't even know how to do the little things. So you may as well figure out the big thing because you got a limited amount of time, right? So, you're good enough. Think big. You got a limited amount of time, so make the most of the time that you have. So that's the lesson that I get in every conversation with him. It's just he uses different words to say it, but urgency, right? Urgency and that you're good enough and go forward. And I think it's something that we don't hear enough of.
I think you're absolutely right. I don't, and I think that's why it gave me a good gut punch because, for one, I don't know I was expecting to hear that. Two, I think we don't hear it enough. And when we finally get to a place where we're believing it ourselves that we are good enough, by that time, we've learned enough lessons. And then we have some people play with the imposter syndrome. And so I just didn't expect that. And I think that's extremely important to hear you're good enough.
But imposter syndrome is a symptom of the competent. Only competent people have imposter syndromes. Fools believe they can do it already. It's the intelligent people that think they're not good enough. Right? Think about
Yeah.
that. The fool
Yeah,
already
man.
believe he don't. The fool don't have imposter syndrome. That's why he's a fool, right? He believes it. He just gonna keep going. He don't know what he needs to know or know what he don't know. He just keeps going. But that's why a lot of lower educated people are more successful financially or do bigger things than those who are highly analytical a lot of times, because we not only know what it took to get to where we are, but we're also looking at what it's going to take to get to the next thing. And then that's where the kind of, I don't know if I'm good enough comes in. So that's what I learned from Mr. Price is that, imposter syndrome is a symptom of the competent. It's the incompetent that never has imposter syndrome. So it should be a reaffirmation that you are on the right path because you've counted all the costs. Now, the question is, do you want to pay it? So you know what it costs to get there. Is that a price you're willing to pay? If you ain't willing to pay, cool. It ain't imposter syndrome. You just don't want to do it, right? But the fool don't have nothing to lose. So they like, dude, wherever I'm working on this is better than where I'm at. Usually the intelligent person has a career, they've built some savings. They have to kind of evaluate the risk of pushing all the chips in on the table, right? So that I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I can risk it all for this, but you ain't got nothing to lose. You just do it, right? So that's kind of the biggest thing is it's like you have to believe you're good enough early enough, because given enough time, everybody can be a billionaire if you give them enough time. The person who saves $1 a day, if he had 100,000 years, he could be a billionaire, right? So given enough time, everything is possible. But we don't know when that time's going to run out. So it's better to start believing in yourself early on so that at least you give yourself a chance to have enough time. Because if you wait until you're 60 to start believing in yourself as a Black man, you got maybe 5 to 10 years if you want to work that hard. So you're better off believing in yourself way earlier and just going for it because you are good enough and knowing that it ain't going to happen tomorrow like it does on Instagram. I negotiated for SpeakerHUB for 4 years. 4 years. That conversation started in January of 2020. We closed the deal May of 2024. I emailed Mr. Price for 2 years for breakfast, right? Like we all think it should, I did it and nothing happened. Well, okay, email him again, right? Like I used to get rejected by NBA players, NFL players, asking them to let a college kid manage their money. Dude, I'm like, if this dude with $100 million can tell me no, I ain't afraid of somebody making 70 grand. Like you want to roll your little $300,000 401k? Like, dude, come on. Like you telling me, I don't care about that. Like, who I talked to this morning, right? Like, it's like, dude, I've been rejected by these people, so I'm definitely not. It's kind of like dating, man. I use dating as a great example. Like, I go to a nightclub when I was younger, before I had a family. I go to a club. I'm talking to the baddest one in there. Right?
Right.
So then if it goes right, I won.
Right.
If it doesn't, I've been rejected by the best, so I really don't care what the rest of them got to say.
Right. Right.
I done already got rejected by the baddest chick in here, and my personality is good enough,
Oh,
where I can at least make her a friend. If I got rejected, nobody would know because I know how to work it so that it doesn't end up being a walk of shame, right? So then now they think, well, he with her. How do you know her? And then now it's so much easier to approach someone else. But I think that's life. You go for the home run, go for that big thing, and try to call that person or email that person that is on your dream list or ask for that introduction. If you remember, I told you 4 people knew Mr. Price, had relationships with him before I did. But I told all of them, y'all, Dave Price? They was like, yeah. I'm like, dude, introduce me. They're like, what? I'm like, introduce me. Like, send him an email and tell him I want to do what he's doing, right? But if I didn't mention it, I would have never known. And my thing was, the people that knew him, they weren't doing what I was trying to do. So I'm like, wait a minute, y'all ain't even trying to do private equity and y'all talking to him. I know he'll take my call because I'm actually trying to do, because he was doing like some corporate mentoring in St. Louis at one point to a lot of Black professionals. And I'm like, dude, how y'all get in this group? And they're like, well, he picked us and this. And I'm like, tell him about me. But moral of the story is that persistence, give it enough time, whether it's building relationships, whether it's networking, whether it's trying to close deals, whether it's trying to reach a certain goal or whatever, give it enough time. Everything is possible. The question is, how much time do you have? And since you don't have a lot of time, that urgency is super
That's what I was going to ask you about.
important.
I was going to ask you about the urgency. Can you please elaborate?
Yeah, just do it. Like Nike your life, man. Just do it. Don't sit around and contemplate it, right? Because the first thing that we do, which is a mistake, is we tell our friends and families what we're trying to do. And my mom loves me so much that she would prefer that I don't reach my goals. Let me say that again. My mom loves me so much that it is in her best interest for me not to reach my goals emotionally. Let me tell you why, because I'm her baby. And she don't want to see her baby struggling. She don't want to see her baby with his heart broken when the guy took his idea before, or the business failed and he had to do this other thing. And she don't want to see her baby go through that. So she say, baby, you just go do something else. You'll be all right. You ain't got to try to do that thing, right? But she don't know how close I was to it. Do you see what I mean? So our friends and family, they don't know really how close we are to those acres of diamonds. So it's in their best interest to try to protect us. And instead of hardening us, they soften us. And, most Black, at least in my generation, we graduate from college, we go get a job. Sometimes we're the highest paid people in our families. So to say, I'm going to give up having 8 Allstate agencies, I'm going to leave my management job at Farmers. I was running Illinois and Iowa for Farmers. I had 300 offices that I managed. I'm going to leave that to go and do this sales consulting thing. And it was tough. It was hard. And she's like, baby, just go get you a job back at Farmers. I'm like, no, you don't know how close I am to doing this, right? And, I persisted for 8 years, right? So I left Farmers in 2010, started working on the sales consulting thing in 2012. We bought PitchDB, the original company, on January 7th of 2018. It opened, took on its first customer November 11th of 2019, 2 years later, right? I drove Uber. I delivered groceries for Shipped. I did all of those things in order to pay my developers during that time. So I ain't got no shame, right? Like, I will do whatever I need to do. I was sending emails, doing consulting in the daytime and driving Uber at night. Why? Because the money that I needed to pay the developers at the time was more than what I was making doing consulting and things like that. But I needed to build this software because I had already put all the money into buying the company, right? So I'm like, dude, I got to do whatever. I'm a hustler. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to do it. And but it's that investment of time. I was willing to put in the time. And I think our family and friends, will those are the people that we go to right off the bat. And they tell you, hey, you go do something else. And it's like, nah, I don't need to hear that. Right. If you ask my mom today what I do, she couldn't tell you because I stopped telling her. Like, seriously, my sister found out what I did for the first time August of 2024. I sponsored a huge thing for an awards ceremony for the National Speakers Association, and SpeakerHUB was all over it. And we brought Kim Coles from Living Single. She's one of our clients. She came and did a testimonial talk for us. And I knew my sister liked Living Single. And I'm like, you know what? You don't think your brother cool. I'm going to show you something, right? And she was like, Kim Coles? I'm like, Yeah, I know Kim. Right? I know Kim, right? And I'm acting like it's like Kim's my best friend, which she's not, but I acted like it for a second. We have a good cordial relationship. She's not my best friend in any way. But to my sister, I was the man for one day. Right? You know, and but I protected myself from bad advice. Meaning, hey, quit. Anytime I hear quit or go do something else, that's bad advice, right? So I protected myself from bad advice by just never talking to my family about what I was working on. Man, what you doing nowadays? Oh, man, I'm just working, just doing sales. That was my answer. So my mom always said, oh, he just do sales. Where do you do sales? I don't know, some software thing. But she never knew what it was. She never knew it was mine, that, that I was buying companies and things of that sort. So we've bought 5 companies in the last 6 years. Since 2018, and we just keep buying little small ones and rolling them into the larger machine. But yeah, I think the point I was making is that sometimes we go to our friends and family looking for support, and they provide us with what the best that they know.
Out of love.
Right? Yeah. They want to protect us, but I need tough love. I need you to say, boy, just keep going. You'll be all right. I need her just to say, you're good enough. All the stuff you've done, one of my favorite books is Dan Sullivan's The Gap in the Gain. It's Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, and it's called The Gap in the Gain. And it's a very profound but simple concept that says that on the journey of life, everyone is somewhere on the spectrum. On one side, they have a goal, and the space in between where you are and that goal is called the gap. That's where all your frustrations come from, because you're not where you want to be. You know how much hard work it's going to take to get there, and you are just like pushing and focused, but it's exhausting to look at the gap, how far you still have to go. But on the other side, all of your joy, all of your pleasure, all of your reassurances come from the gain, realizing where you came from, right? And to grow up at 2029 Trendley in a house that's now covered with weeds, where every other house on the street is burned down, in the hood, single parent household, living with a bunch of my sisters, but other kids that families had abandoned them, and they came to live with us. I don't know how my mama paid for all of us, right? But to now have lived in 5 countries, to currently run 3 different software companies at this time, living in Medellin, Colombia, raising my own family. I think the gain has been pretty good, right? But there's still that gap. There's still some things that I want to achieve, so I keep going. But I think a lot of times we measure where other people are, but we don't know where they started on that spectrum. Like, we don't know if they started closer to the thing or who they had to mentor them or whatever. But given what I started with, I'm okay. I am perfectly fine with what I've accomplished, and I have something most people don't have, which is enough.
Oh wow!
I got enough, man.
There's so many gems that you drop in here. I find myself just finishing to pause in my meditative thought on one gem, and then another one pops out. I got to tell you, it's incredibly rewarding hearing you speak and going into this, because I think in some of my conversations with some of the guests, as far as entrepreneurs and so forth, they look for these types of gems to help further motivate them. And I can't tell you, there's not one piece of wisdom that you have given here that has been less than valuable. And there's a bunch of other questions that come to my head when you talk about going big. So part of gaining big and with that gap in between is go big. Don't just go small. That's what I'm hearing you say. Go dream big. Some of the wisdom I've heard also is don't announce to everyone what you're doing in to your family or loved ones, because sometimes in their love, it's not the best advice on thinking big and going big. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, 100%. You have to take advice from people that have already been down that path, right? So when I was a financial advisor, I talked to the guys in the office, but then I thought bigger than them. And I read the books of the people who had done more than the guys who owned the office I was in, right? When I wanted to get into private equity, I thought big. I looked at the Robert Smiths, the Dan Kennedys, Dan Pena wrote a life-changing book for me called Your First 100 Million. You know, the smaller guys like Ace Chapman. Ace Chapman wrote a book called The Ace Formula. He was doing micro private equity, where he would say, hey, you don't need to go out and raise this big fund. You can buy businesses with your own money. And I was like, how? Tell me, because I ain't got no rich uncle. So tell me how I can buy businesses with my own money. And, you know, Ace and I are like brothers now. You know, there's the old saying, your idols become your rivals. And,
Yes.
you know, these are the people that I looked up to, but they're not even my rivals. We're partners on different things. So from that perspective, it's being able to find someone that's already been down the path and asking them for advice. So really quickly, if the person isn't doing what you aspire to do or living the life that you aspire to have, just don't take their advice, right? Because let me tell you what happens. We as entrepreneurs, we spend 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, 5 days doing all the Google searches, the financial analysis. We're doing the SWOT analysis. We're doing everything. We're looking at competitors. And then we tell somebody what we're working on in 10 minutes, and they ain't done none of that research, but yet they're going to give us their opinion. I will not let somebody with 10 minutes worth of the knowledge the perspective that I shared with them destroy something that I spent 3 months researching or 3 weeks researching. I mean, we do it all the time. Man, that ain't gonna work. Dude, you're an idiot. You haven't done any of the stuff to back up. You have an opinion without consequences. That is the most dangerous thing in the world, an opinion without consequences. It's barbershop talk. Nobody takes what's said in a barbershop serious. We say all types of wild stuff in the barbershop. Ain't nobody walking out of there taking it personal, thinking that LeBron is really better than Michael Jordan. Nobody believe that. Nobody really believe that, right? But we'll argue it at the barbershop. We don't really believe that, right? So a lot of times that's the kind of advice we're getting. We're getting either protective advice or someone saying, man, that's huge. Man, how you going to do that? And instead of them saying, how can I help? They protect themselves. And let me give you what I mean by that. A lot of times, this is what I believe. People see you through their own lens.
Yes.
And if you go off and you do this big thing, it removes the excuse that they've been using the whole time why they couldn't do it. They got a dream too. That's why we become inspirational after we accomplish our thing. But if we'd have kept talking to them, they would have talked us out of it because they need to still use their excuses to not do their stuff. So you got to leave them alone. My biggest jumps in life came when I left the U.S. because I didn't have the same friends anymore. Here's the funny thing. When I left in 2014, I didn't speak Spanish, but I went to a Spanish-speaking country. And people would always ask me, man, are they racist down there? I'm like, I don't know. I don't speak Spanish. I have no idea. I don't speak Spanish.
Oh, what a great response, too.
I had no idea. They could be saying whatever they want to say. Hey, Steve. They be saying, I can't stand this black dude, this American coming down doing this. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. See. Like, I was totally oblivious, right? To what was happening. And that was what I needed. I needed that vacuum of noise. I needed that vacuum of no opinions. I needed the vacuum of no advice besides me being able to call up Mr. Price or call up Bob Coleman, or maybe when Ace and I built a relationship to ask Ace some questions about how he was doing deals. But I had the books and I had these people. I didn't have the family saying, man, You know, you look frustrated today. Don't ask me why I'm frustrated. Just let me be frustrated. Right? You know, so you know how people be around. Why are you looking so ugly?
Right?
Dude, like, leave me alone. Like, it's a bad. I just lost $8,000 on a dumb decision. Leave me alone. Right? You don't have to justify anything. So me leaving the US was great because I went into this world where I had to become a lot more self-aware about what I was doing and my own thoughts. And I could pursue my goals without any input from the outside. Negative thoughts, nobody was there to save me, none of that. And so, you know, I think that that's important for us to do. Not that I don't love my mom and my sisters. I love them to death. They're the most important people in my life. But like you said, you got to protect yourself from that advice while you're trying to think big, because they don't know what it's like to get there. David never, let me tell you something. Let me say something about haters too. You never get discouraging feedback from people that are ahead of you. You've never given discouraging feedback to people that were beneath you. Look back at your life. If you listen to this, think about the time that you pooped on somebody that was beneath you. You don't. You know, I don't tell my daughter she's stupid because she's 3. She's 3. I understand where she is in her life. I don't tell my 8-year-old son, man, you ain't nothing compared to me. He's 8. He ain't supposed to be nothing compared to me. I should be building him up. My younger frat brothers, I build them up. That's what I should be doing, because they're trying to get to where I'm at. They're trying to make it to 46. What do I look like pooping on somebody that's younger? Ain't got time for that. So the hate and the negativity usually comes from somebody that's further behind, because they don't feel like they can get there, or they feel like you were given a easier way to go. Oh, he only got there because of this. He thinks he this because he live in Columbia. Dude, I don't think I'm nothing really. No, the people that have been in Columbia longer than me never said that to me. The people who speak better Spanish than me don't tell me I'm stupid because I don't speak very good Spanish. They're actually admirable because I speak a second language called English, right? And I have the best response to the people. If someone ever, oh man, you know, your Spanish is bad. I say, well, we can talk in English. Oh no, my English ain't that good. I say, well, I think my Spanish is better than your English, so let's just like, it's an easy solution, right? So I'm actively aggressive. Let me tell you what that is. So this is something that I came up with because it made sense. So there's passive aggressive, where someone feels offended or they want to say something but they don't, so they kind of do something, sleight of hand behind your back. That's kind of passive aggressive, right? I'm actively aggressive, right? If I feel one bit of a challenge, I'm just going to push it a little further to make you make a decision, right? Either respect who I am or back off, right? So that active aggression of, hey man, you know, oh man, your Spanish is bad. Cool, let's talk in English. That's active aggressive. I ain't gonna be passive and be like, man, I ain't gonna hang around him because he don't. Dude, let's talk in English. Right? I'm going to call him to the table. We can talk in English then. I'm good at English. I'm a genius in English. I'm an idiot in Spanish, but I'm a genius in English. Right? You know, so I think that being in those environments and learning to respect yourself and respect your own goals and understand that I have this roadmap and this is where I'm at now. And I'm right here right now. And I'm okay with being here. And if I live another 5 years, I know where I'll be, and I'm okay with where I'll be then. And if I live another 10 years, I know where I'll be in 10 years, and I'm okay with that, with some variance. But I'm not okay with comparing myself to somebody else because I don't know where they started from, right? I can admire what they've done, but I ain't admiring and comparing ain't the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It ain't the same thing because I don't believe in equality. I just don't. I don't think it exists.
Elaborate.
Unless you have the same genes as me, you were born, we twins, and we did everything together. We ain't equal. Your experiences have given you an advantage. My experiences have given me a different perspective and advantage in certain areas of my life. Me not having hair has its advantages versus you having hair. Like, I believe in equal opportunity, but I don't believe in equality. I don't think we're ever equal. I think we should have equal opportunities, but we should leverage our advantages. We should use our advantages. There's an advantage to being 5'6" sometimes, but there's some advantages to being 7'1" sometimes. Use our advantages. Why do I need to be Shaq? I don't need to be jealous of Shaq because he's 7'1". I could be okay at 5 foot. Right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that equality thing leads to comparison and jealousy. Yes. And if you just say, no, I believe in uniqueness. I'm gonna be unique, and as long as we got access to the same opportunities, I'll be unique and attack those opportunities, right? And then merit comes in at that point. It's just who quits first. That's all it is. Who prepared the most and who quits first. Cool. I'll play that game. That's how I think
I've ever heard it. I don't think I've ever heard it put so eloquently. And I think we use the word equal sometimes, and hearing you put it that way, and it becomes a disadvantage. And I'm fascinated with that concept. I want to explore that even more because I think that's such a valuable lesson for people to learn.
Well, I think people conflate 3 words: fair, equal, and same. Fair, equal, and same. There are 3 words for a reason. There are 3 different words for a reason, right? Fair does not mean equal. Equal does not mean same. Let me give you a great example. 4 + 1 = 5. But so does 2 + 3.
Oh, dig it.
They're equal, but they ain't the same. They equals the same thing, but they ain't the same. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Right?
Yes,
but we don't think of it that way. We think of equal, same, and fair to all. And it's like, how could we say that when we weren't born on the same day to the same parents in the same house, given the same food, getting the same whoopings, getting the same pats on the back, going to the same schools? Get out of here with that. It's a coward's mentality. I'm okay with losing. All winners are okay with losing. All of them. They're all okay with losing. They're just not okay with quitting. They choose the games they play so that they don't have to quit. Right? So I look at my situation, I say, I got an advantage in this. Let me go and use the things that I have my advantage in. I'm not trying to be a NFL lineman. I'm 5'5", 180 pounds, man. It ain't gonna work.
So, Ron, I'm curious. Does spirituality play a role in this for you?
In some ways, and I usually try to keep the religious stuff out of it, but spirituality is a different topic. My family, several of my uncles were bishops in the prominent Black denominations. Bishop Harvey Lewis of the Kojic Church is my grandmother's brother, right? Oh, wow. Bishop Willie B. Lewis out of Raleigh, North Carolina. He has I think he has a building named after him at Shaw University, right? That's my grandma's brother, right? Like, wow. So like the religious stuff is always there. It's always been around me, right? Mm-hmm. But as I got older, I had to make my own decisions and what I believe. And I'm a firm believer that what I believe has no effect on anybody else. So, it doesn't make someone else a better or worser Christian, Muslim, Jew, or whatever they believe because they know what I believe, right? But the question isn't what someone confesses to believe. it's you should know them by their fruits, right? You know the tree by the fruit that they bear. So there's one particular thing that kind of sums up life to me. And it's an old story in the book of Micah that says, what does God request of you? And Micah tries to give him all of this stuff. And he offers him all these sheep, and he offers him, oh, I'm going to make all these sacrifices. And God kind of laughs at him. And he's like, dude, all I require of you to do 3 things: do justice, love mercy, walk humbly. Right? So that was the end of my Christian journey at that point, because I already had the key. Do justice, be fair, love mercy. When somebody wrongs you, forgive them, and walk humbly. You ain't never as good as you think you are, right? And just do those 3 things, you're okay. That solved my riddle for religion and everything else, because those 3 things are universal in every religion. And every religion lives by those 3 things. So I can be respectful of every man without ever telling them what I truly believe, because I live by those 3 things. And if you talk to people that know me, they'll tell you, I'm going to do the right thing, or attempt to. Those who wrong me, I'm going to forgive them, right? And I'm going to walk humbly. No matter what I accomplish, there's always somebody who's done more or has done it better. Cool. Just so that's my sermon.
That was extremely fascinating to listen to. I think truly spirituality and religion, for people, they think they're the same thing, like when you said equal sometimes. And I find that there is a difference. There to me, spirituality is the way you live your life. You can be a spiritual person and practice a religion and not have spirituality, but you can have spirituality and not practice religion in the way I see it. And I think that go ahead, please.
Well, I think religion is the vehicle that leads a person to be spiritual. Because if you don't have any definitions of what this thing is, then you don't know how to get there. So people try out different vehicles. They may be a Christian growing up because their parents put them in that car, right? And then they go to prison and they become Muslim because that's the vehicle that's most prominent, that gives them the most peace in prison, right? And then when they reach some level of financial success and they got to stop, you ain't got to pray for God to pay the bills no more. Then you kind of say, I don't need any of these vehicles. We say, all right, I kind of solved this riddle. I understand what spirituality is. Right?
Oh no!
So we're gonna hop out the car at that point. They start taking 10% of our money. We like, this Jesus is high. So we start a foundation instead of get 10% to them. So he can go drive this goofy car. Give 10% to my foundation and let my foundation give the money away as God puts on my heart. I think God can talk directly to me and tell who I should be helping charitably. I don't need to speak through somebody else. So he can drive his Cadillac. Yeah, you better get up out of here. But yeah, that's how I look at it. I think religion is the vehicle that leads a person to spirituality. And sometimes people choose to stay in the vehicle. And sometimes it's better to get out and walk and enjoy the view. I chose to get out and walk, right? I didn't want to ride in the Christianity car, the Islam car, or the Judaism car, or whatever other vehicles out there. I wanted to walk along the way. And that's what the walk with God means to me. It means I don't need your vehicle. I don't need to be in your car. I'm going to walk with myself.
I dig it.
And what we talk about is between us. I ain't never tried to convince anybody to stop being a Christian or anything else. A lot of people try to convince me to stop doing what I'm doing, and I was perfectly fine. Like, hey, man, stop doing that. Walk by yourself and come join, get in the car with us. Nah, I don't want to go faster. I'm okay with the speed I'm going. I don't have to hear anybody's feedback. There's no comparison on this walk, right? It's just a reflection. So, my God has become a reflection of me.
Oh my goodness. I tell you, Ron, I can listen to you. How you said the 30 minutes was valuable for you with your David.
Mhm.
I could hear some of the words you're saying, and it's just, I've said this already a couple of times, but it's just so many precious gems in there. I find it extremely on pause. I really do. And I just, it, it's so much that I want you. As a matter of fact, I know. What's the best piece of advice that was given to you that you can share with our audience, and or uh, words that you would live by that has gotten you to this place, and will help me to uh, encapsulate that.
If you're watching this, I want you to answer one simple question. Tell me the name of your great 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 grandparent. I can't. I can tell you my grandma's name on both sides. I can tell you my grandpa's name on both sides. And on my mom's side, I can tell you my great grandmama's name and my great grandfather's name, Willie and Hazel Lewis. I don't know who their parents were. Now, here's the thing. Less than 100 years ago, Willie and Hazel were both alive. Right? They were both alive. So what it tells me is that in 100 years, ain't nobody going to remember none of this crap I'm doing anyway. So it really don't matter. it really won't matter. If you ask my kids who their great grandmama is, they have no clue. And the only reason they will know who their great great grandma is because it's on a t-shirt at our family reunion that we go to every year. But if them t-shirts didn't exist, in which most people don't have a long-standing family reunion, you don't know your great 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 grand. You don't know 3 generations back. You definitely don't know what they did. Right? So with that being the case, I'm a firm believer that even though this is the first generation where we can record and give a living history using these podcasts and other things, it still won't matter. My grandkids will be able to, like, I'm 46. When I turn 65, my daughter will be 21, right? I may not ever meet my great grandkids or my grandkids, not to even mention great grandkids. So it just won't matter at some point. And as long as I go forward, understanding that this really only matters to me, it's easier for me to make the decisions, right? It matters to me, but it affects them. And that's what I always keep in perspective, right? Hey, this means something to me, and here's how it affects them. And that's the best piece of advice I've ever come to realize. Why? Because a lot of people reverse that. And they say, well, I don't want them to think, which means it matters to them first. And this is how it affects me. No. It matters to me, and this is how it affects them. Do you see what I mean? One is a thermostat response, meaning that I'm the thermostat and I'm going to have the effect on the people around me. I control the temperature in the room. I control the financial temperature of my family. So it matters to me, but it affects them, the decisions that we make, right? But most people say, well, man, what are they going to say about me? Which means it matters to them. You're worried about what they think about and how it affects you. I don't care about that. So focus on yourself, put the oxygen mask on your face first, and then go save everybody else, right? Because nobody is selfish if they all put the oxygen mask on their own faces first. You're only selfish when you didn't put the mask on them, but they ain't even try to put their own on. Does that make sense?
It
It's
does.
like, man, you ain't help me,
Absolutely
dude.
does.
Did you reach up to grab your mask? Well, man, you put yours on. You didn't even help me with mine. You selfish. Cool, bro. Die. No, I'm just kidding. Cool, bro. Right? If you don't want to reach up and put your own mask on, but I think if we all do that, then only those who truly need our help will get it, right? Because, okay, I see this person may not have the ability to reach up, so I got mine on, I should help them. My daughter, she can't reach the mask when it falls down. So I got to put mine on so I can help her. Because if I don't get mine on, we both will be in bad shape. So look inward. That's the point. It should matter to you first, and then think about how it affects everyone else. That would be the one lesson I would leave to everyone, because I think we care about what other people think so much, and it ain't gonna matter when you're a great grandpa. Ain't nobody gonna remember your behind.
Right.
They not gonna remember you, man. I mean,
words to live by.
Ron, that's it.
Ron, if you felt your greatest accomplishment, and this is it sometimes can be an easy answer and sometimes it's not, but your greatest accomplishment is what?
Being alive. Surviving, growing up in East St. Louis. 70 of my friends were killed before I turned 40, right? Like, that's my greatest accomplishment. In the words of Kanye West, we wasn't supposed to make it past 25.
Oh, yeah.
Still alive. Throw your hands up in the sky and say, we don't care what people say. That's it. Like, my greatest accomplishment is being alive at 46, right? It's going to be a bigger one if I make it to 50 and 60 and 70 and 80. Being alive to tell this story is my greatest accomplishment, because it's only by somebody's grace. You know, I've been on the wrong side of a lot of things, right? And I've survived them. And I don't think that was by mistake. You know, I've been drugged, I've been robbed, I've been through a lot of different things. And yet here I am. Still I rise, Maya Angelou.
Still I rise. Ron, where can people reach you if they want to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so anyone can always reach me on LinkedIn, Ron Story Jr., or on any other platform. It's exactly my name, Ron Story Jr. If you can't find me there, just type in Ron Story Jr. in Google. I'll pop up. You can put a .com behind it. You can find it on every platform. I'm the only one. You know, there won't be a third. My son, his name is Paul. His name is Paul. It's not Ron. So I'm the last. Yeah, that's where they can find me. Preferably LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the professional page. You know, I don't want to see anybody's twerking videos. I prefer that ain't nobody twerking on LinkedIn. So just follow me, add me on LinkedIn. I don't have to see
at least yet.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I don't think they need a job. Ain't no, you know, ain't nobody willing to put that out there. It usually kind of filters out the fools. So,
oh yeah. No, LinkedIn is great. Seriously. I got to tell you, Ron, I appreciate you so much today. Thank you so much for sharing this with our audience. Thank you for taking out your time. I really have to say, again, so many words of wisdom that I'm going to be taking with me. And I hope that we can carry this conversation on another time as well, because I feel like there's so much more I want to delve into with your story in particular. I thank you so much on behalf of Makers Bar for helping us create 1 million leaders today for tomorrow, because it's what you shared with us today, I think, has done that. So I thank you on behalf of Makers Bar, LinkedIn, and myself, and many others who will be watching this. Thank you so much, Ron. I truly mean that.
Yeah. Hey, here's my one piece of advice. Be the person you needed. Right? Be the person you needed. Be the leader you needed. If you aspire to do that, you'll be all right. Because there's some kid that's in the same situation. There's another 5'6" kid in East St. Louis that ain't gonna make it in baseball or basketball, that needs to know that he could be an entrepreneur and buy software companies and get his passport and live in 5 other countries and, you know, be a dad and allow his partner to stay at home. And, you know, I'm George Jefferson. Mr. Jefferson, you can be George Jefferson. I'm the same. You know, I just cut my hair off. But we the same height. I got Wheezy in the other room. Right? And but you can do it. So be the leader that you needed when you were younger. And I think that makes the world a better place.
Ron, thank you so much, my friend. I am looking forward to speaking with you and continuing our friendship to grow. Angela, it was exactly right, and talking, singing your praises. And I'm so privileged. I feel privileged to have spoken with you, and thank you for sharing that with us so much. I truly mean that. In our exploration of redefining Black excellence, pardon me, Ron's story is one of those examples that I see as Black excellence. I thank him for sharing and taking his time with us today. Hopefully, some of you will get some of the same pause moments I did from some of his words of wisdom. Ron Story Jr., Black excellence. On behalf of Maker's Bar, remember the love evolution is the revolution of love, and it starts with you. And I'm going to use Ron's words today to leave with: be the leader you want it to be. Did I say that? I said that wrong, Ron. I butchered that, didn't I?
Be the leader you needed.
Be the leader you needed. That's right. Be the leader you needed. On behalf of Maker's Bar, it's your boys Seth Guru Baxter and Ron Story Jr. From SpeakerHUB. Thank you for joining us today. Everyone, take good care, and we'll see you next time. Ron, thank you again.
See you later, guys.